your biology subject matter expert from memoneet, and in today's video lecture, we will be concentrating on the excretory products and their elimination. So, yeah, moving to the topic. So, what do you mean by excretion and how the waste that has been generated in our body have been eliminated from our body? So, this is what we are gonna concentrate more on. So, animals usually they accumulate the waste as either ammonia or urea or uric acid or carbon dioxide, water, and some of the ions like Na plus, K plus, and Cl minus. Even some could be like potassium, sulfate, and many other. So that would be either through the a metabolic activities or by other means like excess ingestion, or the substance have to be removed totally or either they have to be removed partially from the body. So when I'm talking about the ammonia, the most toxic forms requires a large amount of water for its elimination. So any animals, if they remove their waste in the form of ammonia, then that the ammonia are actually the most toxic one and requires a large number of water or large amount of water for its elimination. This is one thing. Then we have urea and the uric acid. Uric acid is actually the least toxic and it removed with minimum loss of water. That is, it requires less amount of water. So a minimum, amount of water is required in order to remove the uric acid as an excess waste from the body. So basically, the ammonia, urea, and uric acid, these are the three major forms of nitrogenous waste which are eliminated from our body. So there is a process of excreting the ammonia from our body, and the process is actually called as ammonotelism. So here what actually happens is many bony fishes, right? So they could be aquatic amphibians or aquatic insects. So they are basically ammonotelic in nature. That means the ammonia as a readily soluble is generally excreted by the process, that is diffusion across the body surface, either with the help of gill surface when I'm talking about the fishes as ammonium ions. So kidney here, it doesn't play any major role, and like removal of this ammonia, kidney doesn't play its major role in removing of this ammonia from the body. So then next we have the urea or uric acid. So that is actually seen in terrestrial mode of adaptation. In terrestrial adapted animals or organisms, so necessarily the production of the less toxic nitrogenous waste like we have urea and uric acid for conservation of water. That means in the aquatic form, the availability of water is more, so that they can actually remove the body waste in the form of ammonia. But when it comes to terrestrial mode of adaptation, their major role or concentration is to conserve the water. That is conservation of water, because of which they will go to the removing of this nitrogenous waste in the form of urea or uric acid, because these are the two form of nitrogenous waste which requires less amount of water in order to remove from the body. So though animals, many terrestrial amphibians or some of the marine fishes, mainly they excrete the urea. Okay, so those animals are actually called as ureotelic animals. So ureotelic animals are nothing but the animals which actually excrete that nitrogenous waste in the form of urea. So ammonia produced by the metabolism is actually converted. So whatever the ammonia, right? So that has been converted into urea, where in the liver of these animals, and they are being released into the blood. So later on, once they are released into the blood, then through the with the help of the like through the blood, so they will be filtered and they will be excreted out by the kidney. So here, where in the ureotelic animal, kidney plays a major role in removing of the waste from the body. So some amount of the urea may be retained in the kidney matrix of some of these animals to maintain a desired osmosity or osmo rate. So a kind of osmometrical function, that is equilibrium or balancing. So this is clear. So when coming to the ammonotelism, where the ammonia been excreted as a nitrogenous waste from the body of the organism. So most of the bony fishes and some of the aquatic insects, so they normally diffuses this ammonia across their body surface through the gills, through the gills itself. So here what happens, where how in the form of ammonium ions. So here what actually happens is kidney doesn't play any significant role in its removal. So whereas in the ureotelic animals, where the urea or the uric acid, are the nitrogenous waste. So they are being excreted out from the body because to conserve the water is the major intention of the organism's body. So here what happens, kidney plays a very important role because whatever the ammonia as a byproduct, so they will be converted into the urea or uric acid, and that will be released into the blood, and with the blood that will be filtered out by the kidney. So later on what happens, some of the urea may retain in the kidney itself, that is kidney matrix. So because to maintain the osmotic level or to maintain a desired osmo regulation or something like that, okay. Then most of the reptiles, like and birds, land snails, insects, they excrete this nitrogenous waste as the uric acid in the form of pellets or paste. So I guess you have seen, birds waste, white, paste like thing. So these all are what uric acid. So even some of the pellets. So what happens here? Here it has minimum loss of water, and those animals are actually called as ureotelic animals. Clear with this slide? So if you're clear, I'll be moving to the next slide then. Cool. So these are the examples of types of excretion. So one is amniotelic, where you'll actually see that aquatic invertebrates, bony fishes, and aquatic amphibians, some of the aquatic amphibians, they actually, release the ammonia as a nitrogenous waste. So where there are certain adult amphibians and mammals, so they are the ureotelic, and insects, reptiles, birds, they are uricotelic in nature. Right. So next we have is what is a major function of certain cells or certain organs in our body, especially in the human body, and how do they, not only in the human body, basically in any other organisms also. So what are the certain cells or certain organs? They play a very important role in the regulation of excretion. So then we have here that is called as flame cells, which is actually called as photonephrodia, where they are actually found in the platyhelminthes. Platyhelminthes are planaria, right? So, some of the annelids and cephalochordates and rotifers. So these all comes under the platyhelminthes, and these flame cells are actually found in them. So what is the major function of this flame cell is? So they helps in the ionic and fluid volume regulation. So that is nothing but osmoregulation. Okay. Then we have nephridia, so which are actually found in the earthworms and other annelids. The major function of the nephridia are it helps in the removal of the nitrogenous waste and maintenance of the fluid and ionic balance. Next we have as Malpighian tubules. So here the major, they have been found in the most of the insects like cockroaches and all. And the major function of this Malpighian tubules is removal of the nitrogenous waste. So that is again helps in osmoregulation. Then we have green glands, which is nothing but antrenal glands. So they are found as prawns. Okay, that is crustaceans. So what is the major function of this antennal glands? Is excretion of the waste. So here, what are the cells or organs, and these are found in which organisms, and what is its major function? All the function is related to the excretion itself. So questions might also come from this, like they can give you an organism name and they can ask you like option where you have to choose a correct option, that which organ or which cell is responsible for the excretion in this particular organism, something like that. Coming to the major part, that is human excretory system. Coming to the human excretory system, as you can already see here in the figure, what do you see? It consists of a pair of kidney and one pair of ureters. Then we have, so you're seeing, right? One pair of ureters and a urinary bladder. So you have one pair of ureters here. Then we have only one urinary bladder here, and we have urethra. So this is what basically the pair of kidney consists of. So human excretory system consists of. So we know this is a kidney, which is actually a pair of kidney. That is nothing but two kidney we have, and one ureters we have, urinary bladder we have. Ureters is also again a pair of ureters we have. Then we have urinary bladder. Then we have, what is it? Urethra. See, kidney, when coming to the color, it is actually reddish brown in color. And you can see here, it is somewhat bean shaped in structure. And they're actually situated between the level of last thoracic and third lumbar vertebra, closer to the dorsal inner wall of the abdominal cavity. So each kidney of an adult is measured around 10 to 12 centimeter in length, and its width is 5 to 7 centimeter in width, where 2 to 3 centimeter in its thickness, which our average weight of a kidney will be around 120 to 170 gram. So towards the center of the inner concave surface of the kidney, so we will actually find a knot. They are actually called as hilum. And what actually happens here is, through which the ureter or the blood vessels and the nerve, they actually get enters. Okay, so inner to the hilum, so we will actually see a broad funnel shaped space which is called as renal pelvis, which projections with a kind of projections. So here it is, we have the pelvis. So there is certain projections here. These are the projections, and we normally call them as medulla, right? So sorry, we actually call those projections as uh, calces. So later on, the outer layer of the kidney that we are talking, so they are very tough capsulated, and inside the kidney. Now, as we get into the when we take a transverse section of a kidney, so what all the things that we see is, inside the kidney there are actually two zones. So one is outer cortex region. So this is the inner cortex region, right? And we have the outer cortex region. Uh, this is the outer cortex region, and we will be having inner medulla. Okay. Then the medulla is actually divided into few conical masses, such as medullary pyramids. So you can see like this type of structure. They are somewhat pyramid-like structure, right? So that is what they are saying. That is, the medulla has been divided itself into medullary pyramids. So projecting into the calces. So this, whatever the region, right? So they are calyx. Okay, so if there are many, we normally call calyx. So this calyx extends in between the medullary pyramid as renal column. They are called as columns of Barthini. Clear with that? So if you are clear with the transaction of the kidney, once again, kidney, uh, it consists of pair of kidney, one pair of the uterus and urinary bladder as well as the urethra. So kidney, coming to its color, reddish brown, bean-shaped structure situated between the levels of last thoracic and third lumbar vertebra closer to the dorsal inner wall of the abdominal cavity. And coming to its human kidney measure 10 to 12 centimeter in length and 5 to 7 centimeter in width by 2 to 3 centimeter in thickness with an average weight of 120 to 170 gram. Okay. And towards the center of the inner concave surface of the kidney is actually a knot called as hilum through which the what do you say that ureter, then the blood vessels, as well as the nerves they actually get entered. And inner to the hilum is a broad funnel shaped space, which is actually called as renal pelvis, which projects, and its projection is actually called as uh, calyx. And the outer layer of the kidney, which is actually what? Tough capsulated, and inside the kidney, that is when we take a transfer section and when we look into the kidney in inside structure, we have two zones. One is the outer cortex and inner medulla, and the medulla has been divided into few conical masses, which is actually called as medullary pyramid, which is projected into this calyx, and the calyx extends in between the medullary pyramids as renal columns. They are called as columns of birthing. Coming to the next one, that is, each kidney has nearly 1 million complex tubular structure, which is called as nephrons. So if this is a kidney, so you will actually see out of here, right? So you will actually see 1 million projections of nephrons, and this is what we call as nephrons. So here this entire filtration process and all happens. So which are the functional units? So what is the functional unit of kidney now? The functional unit of kidney is nephrons. So each nephrons has two parts. So the very first part will be the glomerular part, and the next part will be the renal tubules. Okay. So here the glomerular is the tip of capillaries found by the, so they're actually the tip of capillaries which are found by afferent arterioles, a fine branch of renal artery. And basically, what happens? Blood from the glomerular is carried away by an efferent arterioles. So here we have is efferent arterioles. So blood is actually carried away by this efferent arterioles. Clear with that? So each kidney has around 1 million complex tubular structure, which is actually called as nephrons, which are the functional unit of the kidney. And each nephrons has two parts. One is glomerular part and the renal tubules. So the glomerular is a tuft of capillary formed by an afferent arterioles and a fine branch of renal arterioles. So here what happens? The blood from the glomerular is carried away by an afferent arterioles. So after this, if you just concentrate only this part, like what it does and what all the things are there. See, here we have the renal tubule begins with a double walled cap-like structure. Okay, this is a cap-like structure, which is actually called as Bowman's capsules. Okay, so which encloses what? So this actually encloses this glomerular. So glomerular along with this Bowman's capsules, it is actually called as Malpighian body or renal corpuscles. So now we are clear with what is this renal corpuscles is nothing but they are the Bowman's capsule together along with the glomerular. Okay, so that is nothing but it is actually the Malpighian body. So now the tubule continues further to form a higher, you are seeing the higher coiled network. So this higher coiled network is actually called as PTC, is nothing but proximal convoluted tubules. Okay, these proximal convoluted tubules, they are highly coiled network, and the hairpin shaped, you will actually see a Henson's loop in the next part of the tubule, which has a decreasing and ascending limb. Then we have this ascending limb that actually continues as another highly coiled tubule region called as DCT, that is nothing but distal convoluted tubule. So this distal convoluted tubules of many nephrons open into a straight tube, which is actually called as collecting duct. So many of which converges and open into the renal and the pelvic through medullary pyramid in the calyx. So in what happens, the Malpighian capsules, this proximal convoluted tubules, and we have distal convoluted tubules, right? So of the nephrons are situated in the cortical region of the kidney, where the loop of Hansen dips into the medulla. So in majority of the nephrons, what happens is the loop of the Hens is too short and extends only very little into the medulla. And such nephrons are actually called as cortical nephrons. So in some of the nephrons, the loop of Henry's is very long and runs deeper into the medulla, and these nephrons are actually called as juxtamedullary nephrons, and the afferent arteriole emerges from the glomerular form, a fine capillary network around the renal tube. So this is where they're actually called as peritubular capillaries, and they will actually maintain a U-shaped vasa recta is absent or high, reduced in the cortical nephrons. So coming to the urine formation involves three major processes, namely that takes place in different parts of the nephrons. One is glomerular filtration, then reabsorption and secretion. One by one, let us understand. So the first and the foremost step is urine formation is actually filtration of the blood. So which is carried out by the glomerulus and is actually called as glomerular filtration. So around that is 1100 to 1200 ml of the blood has been filtered by the kidney per minute. Very important, which constitutes a rough of 1/5 of the blood pumped out by each ventricles of heart in a minute. Then this glomerular capillary blood pressure causes the filtration of the blood through three layers. So one is the endothelium of the glomerular blood vessels, and the epithelium of the Bowman's capsule, and the basement membrane between these two layers, that is between the Bowman's capsule and the glomerular blood vessels. So here the epithelial cells of the Bowman capsules, called the podocytes, are arranged in the indicated manner so as to leave some minimum space in between. They are called as cyst pores. Okay, so blood is filtered. So finally, through these membrane, what happens? The most of the constituents of the plasma, except the proteins, passes on to the lumen of the Bowman's capsule. Therefore, it is considered as a process of ultrafiltration. The amount of filtrate found by the kidney per minute is called glomerular filtration rate. Then this glomerular filtration rate in a healthy individual is approximately 125 milliliter per minute, that is 180 liters per day. So this is how it looks. Then the kidney has built-in mechanism for regulation of the glomerular filtration rate. One such efficient mechanism is actually carried out by juxtaglomerular apparatus. So that is JGA. So here this in the next coming, I will be just saying like JGA. So what happens in JGA is special sensitive region formed by the cellular modification as distinct convoluted tubules and the afferent arterioles at the location of their contact. So a fall of this GFR can activate the JG, that is nothing but juxtaglomerular cells, to release the renin, which can stimulate the glomerular blood flow. Okay, and thereby this GFR back to its normal. So as a result, what happens? That is glomerular. As a result, we will see that the compensation of the volume of the filtrate formed per day, that is 180 liters per day, with that of the urine release, suggesting that 99% of the filtrate has to be reabsorbed by the renin tubules. So this process is actually called as reabsorption, which I'm talking about the next step. So the tubular epithelial cell is different segments of the nephron perform this either by active or passive mechanism. For example, substances like glucose, or it could be the amino acids or Na plus ions, and many in the filtrate are reabsorbed actively, whereas the nitrogen waste are absorbed by passive transport. So reabsorption of water also occurs passively in the initial segment of the nephron. So next we have is during urine formation, the tubular cell secretes substances like H plus, K plus, and ammonia into the filtrate. So tubular secretion is also an important step in urine formation, as it helps in the maintenance of the ion and acid base balance of the body fluid. So then we'll go with the functions of the tubules. So the major function of the tubules is we have different functions now. One is PCT, that is nothing but the proximal convoluted tubules. So it is lineated by the simple cuboidal brush board epithelium, which increases the surface area for the reabsorption. Nearly all of the essential nutrients and 70 to 80% of the electrolyte water are reabsorbed by this specific segment. So here this proximal convoluted tubules also helps to maintain the pH as well as ion balance of the body fluid by selective secretion of the hydrogen ions and ammonia into the filtrate, and by absorption of this entire form. Then we have is Henson's loop. So where reabsorption is minimum in this ascending limb. So however, this plays a very important role or a significant role in maintenance of high osmolatory of the medullary intestinal fluid, and the descending limb of the loop of what was that? Henless is permeable to water, but almost impermeable to the electrolyte. So this concentrates the filters as it move down, and the ascending limb is impermeable to water but allows the transport of electrolytes actively or passively. Therefore, as a concentrated filtrate passes upward, it gets diluted due to the passage of electrolyte to the medullary fluid. So we'll moving to the next slide. We have distal convoluted tubules, so which is actually called as DCT. So where this conditional reabsorption of this Na plus ions and water takes place in the segment, and this distal convoluted tubules is also capable of reabsorption of HCO3 and selectively secretion of this hydrogen and potassium ion and NH3 ammonia to maintain the pH and sodium potassium balance in the blood. So we have the next one is collecting duct. So this long duct extends from the cortex of the kidney to the inner part of the medulla, and a large amount of water could be reabsorbed from this region to produce a concentrated urine. So this segment allows the passage of small amount of the urea into the medullary interstitium to keep the osmolality, and it also plays a very important role in maintenance of the pH and ion balance of the blood by the selective secretion of H plus and K plus ions. Yeah. mechanism of concentration of the filtrate. So here what you can see is the mammals have the ability to produce a concentrated urine. So through the Henle's root and vasa recta, which actually plays a significant role in this concentration urine formation. So the flow of filtrate and the two limbs of the endless loop is opposite direction and thus forms a counter current. So the flow of blood through the two limbs of vasa recta is also in a counter current pattern. So yeah, basically what happens here is the proximally between the Henson loop as well as endless loop as well as the vasa recta as well as the counter current in them. So that actually helps in increasing this osmolality towards the inner medullary, interstitium, that is from 300 MO most mod to the cortex to about 1200. So this is actually a unit in the inner medulla. So what actually happens here is, as you can see here, so basically the proximately between the, and so this is the endless loop and this part that you are seeing is actually the vasa recta. So in the counter current, that helps in maintaining a increasing osmolality towards the inner medullary interstitium. So where from 300 to in the cortex to about, so this is 1200 in the inner medulla region. So this gradient is mainly caused by the NaCl, as you can see here, many NaCl, and the gradient is actually caused by NaCl as well as the urea. So where NaCl is transported by the ascending limb, so that is here of the endless loop, which is exchanged with the descending limb of the vasa recta. So then we have NaCl is actually again, it has been written to the interstitium by the ascending portion of the vasa recta. Similarly, a small amount of the urea, it actually enters in the thin segment of the ascending limb of the Hansen's loop, which is transported back to the interstitium by the collecting tubule. And the above describes transport of the substances facilitated by the special arrangement of the endless loop and vasa recta, which is actually called as counter current mechanism. So this mechanism basically it helps to maintain a concentration gradient in the medullary interstitium. Then the regulation of the kidney function. The function of the kidney is efficiently monitored and regulated by the hormone feedback mechanism involving the hypothalamus, then GGA, and to the certain extent, even heart. Then the osmoreceptors in the body are activated by the change in the blood volume and blood fluid volume and ion concentration. An excessive loss of fluid from the body can activate these receptors, which stimulates the hypothalamus to release this ADH, that is anti antidiuretic hormone or vasopressin from the urinohypophysis. Then this ADH, that is the hormone which actually facilitates the water reabsorption and later parts of the like tubule, thereby preventing the diuresis, and increasing in the body fluid volume can switch off the osmoreceptors and it will suppress the ADH hormones releases to complete the feedback. Then this ADH hormones can also affect the kidney function by its affecting on the blood vessels also, and this causes an increase in blood pressure. An increase in blood pressure can increase in the glomerular blood flow and thereby the GFR. Then that GA plays a complex that complex it plays a regulatory role. Uh, Fall in this JGA and like what do you say that glomerular blood flow or glomerular blood pressure, that is GFR, can activate the JG cells to release renin, which converts the uh, angiotensin in the blood to angiotensin 1 and further to the angiotensin 2. Then this angiotensin 2, being a powerful vasoconstrictor, it increases the glomerular blood pressure and thereby GFR, and which is nothing but the glomerular blood pressure. Uh, Angiotensin 2 also activates the adrenal cortex to release the uh, aldosterone. Then this aldosterone, it causes the reabsorption of Na plus and water from the distal part of the tubules, and this also helps to increase in the blood pressure and the GFR. And this complex mechanism is generally known as the renin angiotensin mechanism. And so, what is an angiotensin mechanism? Is nothing but angiotensin 2 being a very powerful vasoconstrictor, it increases the glomerular blood pressure, thereby the GFR. Angiotensin 2 also activates the adrenal cortex to release this aldosterone. And this aldosterone, it causes the reabsorption of Na plus and water from the distal part of the tubule. And this leads to the increase in the blood pressure as well as GFR. And this complex mechanism is actually called as an angiotensin mechanism. So an increase in the blood pressure to the atria of the heart can cause the release of the atrial natriuretic factor, and this which is ANF, can causes the vasodilation, which is the dilation of the blood vessels and thereby decreases the blood pressure. And then this that is ANF mechanism therefore acts as a check on the renin angiotensin mechanism. So coming to the mituration, so which is the urine formed by the nephron is utilized ultimately that been carried by what urinary bladder, where it is stored till the voluntary signals is given by the central nervous system, and this signal is initiated by the secretion of urinary bladder as it gets filled with the urine. And in response, what happens? Receptor on the wall of the bladder sends a signal to the central nervous system, and then it passes to the initiate the concentration of smooth muscles of the bladder and stimulate the relaxation of the urethral spectrum, causing the release of the urine. So as a result, the process of release of urine is actually called as uh, micturition, and the neural mechanism which actually causes this micturition is actually called as micturition reflex. Clear? So an adult human excrete an average 1 to 1.5 liters of urine per day, and the urine formed is light yellowish in color, watery fluid which is slightly acidic, which is around 6.0, and has a characteristic which is odor smell. On an average, 25 to 30 grams of the urine is excreted out per day, and various conditions can affect the characterization of the urine. So, analysis of the urine helps in the clinical diagnosis of many metabolic disorders as well as malfunctioning of the kidney. For example, presence of glucose and ketone bodies, that is keratin in urine, are indication of the diabetic mellitus. Then the role of other organs in the excretion. So other organs in the excretion means uh, than the kidney, lung, liver, skin, they also play a very important role, right? So lungs, liver, skin also plays a very important role in elimination of the excretory waste. Like lungs gives out large amount of carbon dioxide, then also significant quantities of water every day. So liver, the largest gland in our body, secretes bile containing substances like bilirubin, then biliverdin, and cholesterol, and degraded steroid hormones, vitamins, and drugs. Most of these substances ultimately pass out along with the digestive waste. Then the sweat and sweat glands is the skin, right? That can ultimately eliminate certain substances through their secretion. Sweat produced by the sweat gland is a watery fluid containing NaCl and a small amount of the urea, lactic acid, etc. Then through the primary functions of the sweat, it is facilitates a cooling effect on the body surface. It also helps in the removal of some of the waste metabolic and also. Next, yeah, sebaceous glands eliminate certain substances like steroids and hydrocarbons and wax through the sebum. So this secretion provides a protective oil, covering for the skin. So coming to the disorders of the excretory system is malfunctioning of the kidney can actually leads to accumulation of the urine in the blood, and that condition is actually called as uremia. That condition is actually called as uremia, which is highly harmful and may lead to the kidney failure. In such patients, urea can be removed by a process which is actually called as hemodialysis. Then during the process of hemodialysis, what happens? The blood drain from the convenient artery in pumped in a dialysis unit. They are called as artificial kidney, and the blood drains from a convenient artery is actually pumped into a dialysis unit after adding an anticoagulatory like heparin, so that will not let the blood to coagulate. Then the unit contains a coiled cellophane tube surrounded by a fluid, which is the dialytic fluid, having the same composition as that of the plasma, except the nitrogenous waste. So now what happens in that cellophane membrane? So porous will be there, allows the passage of these molecules based on the concentration gradient, as nitrogenous waste are actually absent in the diagnostic tube. So all those nitrogenous waste which are freely move out, thereby clearing the blood. So this cleared blood, is actually again pumped back once again to the body through veins after adding antiheparin to it. This method is a boon for thousands of uh, uremic patients all over the world. Kidney transplantation is the ultimate method in the correction of the acute renal failures. That is nothing but kidney failures. And a functioning kidney is used in transplantation for a donor, preferably a close relative, to minimize the chances of the rejection by our own immune system of the host. Modern clinical procedures have increased the success rate of such complicated techniques. Then we have renal calculi, so which is actually stone or insoluble mass of the crystallized salts formed within the kidney. Then the next we have is glomerulonephritis. So it is actually inflammatory of the glomeruli of the kidney. So this is all about the kidney disorder, right? So yeah, this covers the entire chapters of excretion. And yes, you have any doubts regarding this chapter, you can contact me through the message comment section or else through the Telegram channel. And yeah, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Thank you.